I have these two Siberian tomato plants which I started back in December, and these are way overdue to go into some larger container and to go outdoors. The name really means something, that these seeds are from Siberia, and the virtue of these seeds is that they are cold tolerant, and supposedly they will set fruit in 40 degrees. And I think on these plants already we have some signs of flowering. So what I'm going to do is plant these in a 5-gallon bucket because it will fit inside some tomato cages that I already have. This is the bucket I'm planning to use. It's a standard cheap blue bucket that you get at Lowe's, so it will already be light proof. Okay, so I'm going to drill a 1/4-inch hole in the side of this thing, which is going to be my gauge. I'm just going to take a piece of 1/4-inch tubing and put it in there. It's not completely watertight, but it's good enough. The idea will be that when I replenish the fluid in here, that water will start to flow out of this at the level where I want it to come back to, which is slightly below the depth of the 2-inch net cups that I'll be using in this. And then I've got this blue plastic lid that is kind of an after solution, but it's a lid that just sets on kind of gently, as opposed to really locking down on the rim of the bucket, so it'll be a little bit easier to deal with. So I'm going to drill 2 1/4-inch pilot holes for the actual location of the net pots. I find it's easier to drill a pilot hole and then do the hole saw. And when you're cutting plastic, the way we use a hole saw is to cut backwards very slowly. Maybe not so slowly. You can see that a 2-inch net cup fits into this very nicely. This will snap down to some degree, but not a lot. Okay. I'm also going to drill a 1/2-inch hole with this wood bit that I will use for a dipstick and also for refilling. Just that easy. This is the arrangement I'm going to use for topping up. It's just a funnel jammed into the end of a piece of 1/2-inch ID tubing. The 1/2-inch hole isn't big enough, so I've got this Radio Shack nibbler tool that I got some time ago when there still was a Radio Shack, and just gonna a little bit of work with a rat tail. Okay, so it's a bit ugly, but it works. You know, you could go out and buy a bit and make that hole one shot, but this is a case of using what you have rather than spending money for something you don't use very often. Here we have the completed setup outdoors. This is March 1st in San Francisco. So these plants have a really good head start. You can see that I've used some clips to attach these to the wire frame here. These are indeterminate tomatoes, so these will probably grow up and out of this cage, and I'll string them around inside this part of my yard. And down below you see how this is put together. And I also put some zip ties to connect the wire cage to the bucket, make it a little more stable. Just want to mention that the food in the buckets is General Hydroponics Bloom food. This is a powdered food, one of the first hydroponic foods that I bought. I'm actually shifting away towards liquid foods, and I would say that if you are starting out in hydroponics, I strongly recommend that you go to the liquid premix multi-part foods. Typically there's an A part and a B part, and I also recommend adding the micronutrients solution to that mix. A while ago I tried starting some cilantro seeds in a piece of the Oasis planting foam, and it basically didn't go anywhere. One reason for that may be that apparently cilantro has something of a poor germination rate. So since I've had good luck starting things like pea sprouts and other things in burlap, I'm basically going to try the same approach here. So I've got a 2-inch net cup, and I'm cutting these little squares of burlap that are about 2 inches square. So I'm just going to soak these down. I'm going to stuff them into this 2-inch net pot. Let's see what I have to do here. So I'm cutting in from the corners a little bit to see if that will make it easier to get this in there. So I guess that's good enough. I'm going to put in 2 layers. So there's a little more material to hold moisture or hold nutrient solution. Okay, so that's my little net cup. So just because they apparently are poor germinators, and also because I want to have a lot of plants coming out of this if it goes. Cilantro is regarded as a very good cut and come again kind of crop, and that is something that you want in your growing system, whether it's a personal thing or a business, because the less time you spend starting seeds and the more time you spend harvesting the produce, the more profitable the operation is, either in terms of what you get to consume for your family and friends or what you get to sell. So the last piece of this is that I'm going to put it in a baggie so it has a little bit of a greenhouse. I'm going to pour some nutrient solution in for it to soak up. And that will be that. So they say cilantro is supposed to be kept in the dark. I'll find a dark place to put this. I started this basil from seed on Christmas Day last year, and it's growing but very slowly. So I decided I would like to do something to jumpstart the process of growing this, because it can be a very profitable crop. And the way I'm going to try to do this is by cloning. So I went to Rainbow Foods and got this little clump of Mexican basil. So I'm hoping to get this to go, and I'm trimming off the flowers. I guess that's what those are. That one doesn't have any. There it is. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sprigs of basil. And I'm not going to do anything profound. I'm just going to do what people usually say to do. Strip the leaves off. Or at least cut the leaves off, I think, in this case, because they're close to the top. So this reduces the amount of transpiration by the plant while it's trying to establish roots. And that one all chopped up but not chopped off. This is kind of sorry looking stuff, but it'll probably be okay. It's probably been on the shelf a few days. Probably not the most viable, but we'll see. Maybe this stuff is really vigorous. They did have Thai basil at Rainbow for less money, but okay. This one actually has some branches, but I'm going to sacrifice those. Nothing profound. This typical net cup has 4 openings in the bottom. So the idea is to just set these down in here, have it stick out the bottom a little bit. Let's see how many I get in here. I'm just going to jam these in without mercy, as the saying goes. See, I got a leaf sticking out here that I don't want. Okay. I just need to gather them all up in one bunch, push them in. Them all in one bunch like this. Oh, I know what else I need to do is get a nice clean cut at the bottom of the plant so they'll be able to absorb water, because these have been sitting for a while. And I'm thinking they don't need to be below the level of the net pot, because I can fill up the water until it covers the net, at least part of the net pot. So I'm just going to stick these guys down in here like this, a little bouquet. One of them stuck through, but mostly they're on the bottom. Let's just see here. Yeah, we can get them pushed through a little bit. Okay, they're pretty much all poking through now. Okay, so I've got this pint mason jar. I'm going to fill it up with water up to a level. Got this piece of foam core with a 2-inch hole in it. And let's just see if we can see. You may be able not be able to see this, but the water level is almost up to where all of the pieces are, all the bottoms are. So, okay, so the water is very comfortably up to the level about 1/2 inch above the bottom of the pieces. It might have been nice to have some longer pieces of basil, but these will probably do or die, as the case is. But now they're ready to go into the nursery to see if they will grow. And I filled the pint jar with my ordinary hydroponic solution, so they should be well nourished. This is an oregano plant that I bought actually back at the end of October and left it in the soil. Let's see, what did I do here? So I basically moved the wad of soil into a net pot, but unfortunately the roots have not grown down into the hydroponic solution to any large degree, and I do want this to be a hydroponic plant and something that I can use as a mother plant for more oregano plants. You do see it has some nice shoots on it in spite of being outside all winter. So I'm not going to show you this, but I am going to rinse all the soil off this and then kind of figure out a way to stick it in here as a hydroponic item. So you can see I'm not going to get all of the soil out of the roots because they are quite well entangled, but I have gotten this thing exposed to the point where there's not going to be enough soil in it to support the plant, so it's going to have to put out roots in order to get nourished. So something I have left over from other gardening efforts is this garden moss. It was used for lining baskets, and I switched to just using a coconut liner. So this has been sitting here, but it's quite expensive stuff, so I don't want to just throw it away or let it go to waste. Put this guy in this net pot and stuff a lot of moss, peat moss, whatever this stuff is, around it, down near the bottom where you've got that stub of roots. Okay, seems to be working out okay because I'm getting that bottom all filled. I believe this is going to be okay. So this may be a solution for other things that you buy in soil. So here's a place where there's a little bit of a void. Okay. Okay, so that'll also provide support for it. Looks pretty good down there now. So this is going to go into a nice clean mason jar. One thing worth knowing is that these wide mouth mason jars are a very perfect fit for a 3-inch net cup. So this is a quick way for you to get going in hydroponics if you're interested. A little bit more. Okay, so that's about 3/4 of an inch up on the net pot. Knowing where the roots are, hopefully the moss will soak up the solution and keep this going.